Super Mario, a character that needs no introduction. Just about everyone you may know has probably played a Mario game at some point, and I've had my fair share of experiences as well. There's no instance when you can't think of video games and your mind doesn't come to Mario at least once, pulling off multiple records, fun games, and single-handedly saving the video game market amidst the video game crash in 1983. I mean, because you just love to see E.T. on the Atari. You just love to see it. It's now been 35 years since his initial debut on the NES, and over this time frame, millions have come to enjoy the adventures of Mario and his friends in the Mushroom Kingdom, as he's gone to do just about anything and everything, with no sign of stopping anytime soon. Oh, and speaking of, it's the 35th anniversary. In anticipation of Mario's 35th anniversary, Nintendo held a special direct for the occasion, announcing what was to come over the next 6 months of celebration. I thought the event was really solid. I was really excited about several of the announcements they made, and besides some questionable decisions, I held firm that these were going to be fun experiences nevertheless. I was even excited for those My Nintendo Splatfest keychains, and I was so excited that I still haven't got them. But the one thing that intrigued me the most was the limited edition Game & Watch. Now, if you don't know about the Game & Watch, they were basically Nintendo's oldest attempt at video games, where each model featured a simple game and a clock on an LCD screen. Over its lifespan, the Game & Watch sold over 40 million units, and Nintendo still periodically references it in their games. Conveniently, at the time of the Direct, the Game & Watch turned 40 years old, and although most overlooked this, some would probably guess that this was Nintendo's way of honoring their first handheld. With a limited production and a release date of November 13th, I was enthusiastic to be able to pick it up. And lo and behold, I did just that. But now it's evident that the anniversary is coming to an end, and the Mario Game & Watch will certainly be hard to come by knowing it may never be produced again. So before it's locked away in the vaults, should you pick up the Super Mario Bros. Game & Watch? Let's find out. When you first look at the box, you already notice a cool detail. The sleeve shows the Mario aspects of the unit, with sprites from the games on each side, but removing it shows the ball portion of the unit, which I think is really cool. The box also contains neat little details as well. Opening the box, you get a rather simplistic package, an instruction manual, a USB-C charger, and the main unit itself. The build quality is really impressive, with the face of the unit being a nice gold-like metal, popping out a small LCD screen with buttons made out of rubber to the side, minus the D-pad, and they feel really smooth to use. On the sides of the unit are a single speaker, a charging port, and the power button. Turning it on, you'd get a neat little visual of Mario juggling. And then it begins. Right away, you're led to the watch portion of the Game & Watch, and although it is simplistic, there are plenty of things to keep you interested. For example, pressing the A and B buttons spawn enemies, pressing both at the same time flashes the blocks, and pressing the time button changes the background of the area. Although most of the interesting stuff in this mode comes from waiting around, you can discover them for yourself easier by using the set time feature, and I'd highly recommend checking everything for yourself as most of it is pleasantly surprising. But now we get to the interesting part, the games. The first and most recognizable is the original Super Mario Bros. Aside from the fact that the game runs really well with the proportions of the handheld, and I was especially impressed with the chiptune quality, there's really not much else to say. It's Super Mario. The platforming, the characters, the power-ups, the levels, everything is kept intact from the original. The controls remain relatively untouched as well. The D-pad controls Mario, the A button makes you jump, and the B button can be used to dash and use power-ups. Many of the game's secrets can be rediscovered in this version as well, along with some new ones. I could go on about the original Mario for a long time, but that would take the charm out of playing it for yourself. To sum up, Super Mario Bros. Remains the cult classic that it was, and it may be some of the most fun you have with the Game & Watch unit. Next is Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, and if you had a fun, interesting time with the original game, you're entering different territory with the Lost Levels. The same basic premise is there. Traverse through 8 worlds and save Princess Peach, although this time it's a lot harder than the first game. Tricky maneuvers, enemy placement, and even wind will probably leave you dying a lot more than anticipated. But for what it's worth, The Lost Levels is a solid game. It has as much if not more fun packed into it, just like the original Mario, and I'd say if you want to play an expert mode Mario, this is your best bet, and you have it right here packed into the Game & Watch. Finally, Game & Watch Ball. After all, you can't have a Game & Watch without a Game & Watch game, so let's see how this holds up. The game is separated into Game A and Game B, with B being harder than A. In the game, you're tasked with juggling a pair of balls and you rack up points each time you do so. And that's pretty much it. I had quite a bit of fun with this one though, especially after playing Mario for a while. It's probably not your first choice in mind when you pick up and play the unit, but for what it is, it's there and readily available for you to play at any time. And I would recommend going into it once to see if it's your forte. And all of these games and features are packed onto a tiny handheld, which is already impressive, but with the convenience of its size and its battery life running at 8 hours, you can pick it up and play anywhere you go, which makes it great for playing when you're out and about. Now, despite everything I just talked about with the Game & Watch, I have one main gripe with it, and that's the price. For $50 US, you're getting 3 games and a time function, and although there are hours worth of content packed into this little device, you could potentially play all of these games somewhere else for much cheaper. And on top of that, a clock. I mean, just look at how much I have. Time is like a tool, you know? You can put it on a wall. This is especially noticeable considering that many may not even touch the lost levels due to its spike in difficulty. Maybe if they had it at most $10 cheaper, it wouldn't be as much of an issue. And although I think the unit itself justifies the price, I mean it looks cool and feels good to play, it may throw some people off. Another thing is that this feels more like a collector's item than something that can compete with the Switch, or even the now discontinued 3DS for that matter. If you already have something that can play these games, you'd probably want to stick with something cheaper. In conclusion, Game & Watch Super Mario Bros. Is a neat way of paying homage to Nintendo's timeless classic. It's got everything you'd expect in a traditional Game & Watch, while also putting a different spin and offering a new experience that might be the smallest available yet. Although it's hard to argue that this is purely a collector's item, I'd still recommend it as a purchase. It can go as a great gift for someone, or maybe you're fueled by nostalgia and want to experience these games in a different way. Whatever the case, it's a cool release and a fun experience. And with Zelda's 35th anniversary this year, I have no doubt that they'll repeat the same strategy and offer another fun product for fans. And I'll be sure to get my hands on it if it does. So in closing, Game & Watch Super Mario Bros. Is a fun way of playing Mario, and I'd recommend getting it before it's gone for good. Or Metroid. That'd be pretty fun too. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm planning on doing more videos like this in the future, and I already have a bunch of ideas planned. So if that sounds like something you're into, let me know by leaving a comment down below. If you like this video, then consider leaving a like and subscribing. It really helps the channel out. I also have a Twitter page. I don't really use it that often, but when I do, I usually use it to notify about new uploads. So if you want to get notified about those, then consider going over there as well. Alright guys, that's about it from me. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now.